Although the readings are focused primarily on the commandments today, I want to focus on the person of Christ. C.S. Lewis said something that really encapsulates the difference that Christianity comes to bring to the world. What did Jesus bring to the world? If you really look at the history of man and the difference between before Christ came and after Christ came, or before you encountered Christ in your life and after you encountered the gospel of Jesus Christ in your life. Well, something C.S. Lewis said was that every philosophy brings in new ideas about how to see the world. Jesus Christ brought his person. And Pope Benedict speaks to that of the greatest gift the world has ever received was in the incarnation. And what happened the day after the greatest event in the history of the world, when God himself entered into our realm? Absolutely nothing. Right? The world didn't change, and yet it was forever changed. Same thing can be happening in our lives. So often after we encounter Christ, it doesn't seem like everything changes all of a sudden. We still wake up, we still have sufferings, we still have things we have to deal with, we still have to go to work, we still have to sleep. But something is different when we encounter the person of Christ now in the midst of our life, in the midst of the daily. I read something today in my office of reading from a reading from St. Theophilus of Antioch, a bishop. And something he says is, "Tell me who you are, and I will tell you who my God is." See, the difference between every other science in this world, we study ideas or we study objects, we study animals, we can study human beings, we can study plants, and we're studying the thing in itself. The difference when we study God, theology, is that when we study God, we actually come to know who we are. When we encounter the person of Jesus Christ, more than anything, it's a revelation of who I am. And that's why the more I look at him, the more I spend time with Christ in my prayer, he actually acts as a mirror, a great light. And in his reflection, I come to understand who I am. I come to understand the history of my life, where God has been present in the midst of everything I've gone through. And I come to understand my purpose in this world. But that's why Christ says, "Blessed are the poor of heart, the pure of heart, for they will see God." So the more pure I become in looking at Christ, the more I'll come to understand myself, and the more I'll understand him in the light of my life. It's also why there's a saying that sin makes you stupid. Sin actually clouds the intellect. And so the further we get from Christ, the further we get from his light, the less we understand who we are, why we're here, where we're going, and the more chaotic everything becomes in my life. So I want to read this passage from St. Theophilus of Antioch, who was preaching to Christians, in the earliest years of the church. This is what he has to say. "If you say, 'Show me your God,' I will say to you, 'Show me what kind of person you are, and I will show you my God.' Show me then whether the eyes of your mind can see, and the ears of your heart can hear. It is like this. Those who can see with the eyes of their bodies are aware of what is happening in this life on earth. They get to know the things that are different from each other. They distinguish light and darkness, black and white, ugliness and beauty, elegance and inelegance, proportion and lack of proportion, excess and defect. The same is true of the sounds we hear, high or low or pleasant. So it is with the ears of our heart and the eyes of our mind in their capacity to hear and see God. God is seen by those who have the capacity to see him, provided that they keep the eyes of their mind open to him. All have eyes, but some have eyes that are shrouded in darkness, unable to see the light of the sun, because the blind cannot see it. It does not follow that the sun does not shine. The blind must trace the cause back to themselves and their own eyes. In the same way, you have eyes in your mind that are shrouded in darkness, because of your sins and evil deeds. It's also why the further a culture or person gets from God, the less they see reason to believe in God. Everything becomes darkness. A person's soul should be clean, like a mirror reflecting light. If there is rust on the mirror, his face cannot be seen in it. In the same way, no one who has sin within him can see God. But if you will, you can be healed. Hand yourself over to the doctor, and he will open the eyes of your mind and heart. Who is to be the doctor? It is God, who heals and gives life through his word and wisdom. Through his word and wisdom, he created the universe. For by his word, all things came into being. If you understand this and live in purity and holiness and justice, you will see God. But before all, faith and the fear of God must take the first place in your heart. Then you will understand all of this. When you have laid aside mortality and been clothed in immortality, then you will see God according to your merits. God raises up your flesh to immortality along with your soul, and then, once made immortal, you will see the immortal one, if you believe in him now. And Jesus Christ is the ultimate revelation of who God is, the perfect reflection of the refulgence of the Father. And we get a glimpse of who God is every single time we come to Mass and we adore the Blessed Sacrament. And the greatest difference, just as when we study God, we actually start to understand ourselves. When we receive Holy Communion, it's not so much that we assimilate God, but God assimilates us and transforms us into his own self.